Well, hello YouTube. Welcome to the channel. My name is Doug. This is another plumbing repair video. If you're familiar with my channel, I had a video a few years ago, 7 years ago, where I had a water leak in the front yard and showed how to repair that in a way that maybe saves some money. Well, that same water line has started leaking again. And this time I called a professional plumber to let them come out and do it because I'm too old and fat to be digging holes like that. So we called them out. And I thought it was interesting, a couple of the techniques they used to fix and protect this water line in the future. And so I made some video. I'm going to show you that now. So I did hire a professional plumber to do it. It cost a couple of $100 more than doing it myself. But if these additional techniques really help, then that'll be money well spent. I'll show you a little bit here of what happened. Well, I wasn't fast enough to get it on video, but they used an air compressor. They turned off the water to the house, then they hooked up the air compressor to the hose spigot on the side of the house. So they pressurized the water line with air, and that makes it easy to figure out where they need to dig in the yard. You just walk around the yard, primarily where it's wet from the leaking, and you look for the bubbles coming up in the ground, and that's where your hole is. So that's what they did. They hooked this compressor up at about 60 psi to the house with the water off and looked for bubbles in the yard. Okay, once the bubbles were located, the next step is manual labor. You just get out the shovels and start digging. You have to be careful, of course. You don't want to damage the water line any further when you get down to the depth, about 2 feet down where the water line is. But you got to dig enough that you can find out where the leak is coming from. And at this point, they turned the water back on, and then you could see for sure where the water was coming from. It just bubbled up in the hole. You could see right away, okay, this is where the leak is. This is a problem. And you can see that's a pretty good leak coming out of that pipe. So it was soaking the yard, soaking the hill, and draining into the drainage ditch. So it was quite a big leak, and I'm expecting to see that on my water bill this month. So they had a little manual siphon pump, and they used that to get the water out of the hole. Then used a reciprocating arm saw to cut the pipe and cut the roots out of the way as well. And it turned out this pipe was sitting right on top of a big root from that same tree that caused this problem 7 years ago. And if we put the new pipe right back in on top of that root, chances are we'd have another problem within a short amount of time. And that's where the experience of a professional plumber comes in, because if I was repairing it, that's what I would have done. I would have put a couple of couplings on these two pipe ends here and stuck it back together, and it would not have lasted as long as hopefully what these guys did different. Before they got ready to put the new pipe on, they turned the water back on at the street and let it flush out this first half of the line that goes from the meter to the top of the screen there, the pipe at the top of the screen. That way there was no trash in the line that wouldn't get into the house, get into the faucets or the hot water heater, etc. So that's a good idea. Flush that line. And then they went ahead and put a couple of elbows on each end of the pipe to raise it up about a foot. That's him flushing right there. You can see the line being flushed. And by raising it up, they're getting that pipe off of the root and taking that tension off of the pipe. And this was another interesting thing that the plumber did that I thought was worth remembering, is they put a 45 here on the top of this pipe so that it's not just a straight L to L connection. And the purpose of that is to remove any tension on the line from the tree roots pressing on it. So it gives it a lack of tension. It takes the tension out of the line and hopefully makes the line less likely to be stressed into breaking.
You use primer instead of, I mean, like this, we throw the street out with a 45 in there to roll it. The reason you do that is you can tell the angle, it takes the angle out of it and lets it relax.
Oh, I got you.
So most people will just put an LL and it doesn't really go down the joint all the way, and then when it pops a few years later.
I got you.
You want your joints to hit all the way on the back so they last. And basically your biggest goal is take it out of tension.
Yeah. So you see, put the 45 on here, and that means the two halves of the line are now no longer in the bind that they were before. They're able to flex just a little bit and get that tension out of the pipe. And that seems like a really good idea. We'll see how well it works, but it seems like it would do exactly what he described it as doing. Now, this next tip comes from his grandfather. This family is a multi-generation family of plumbers, and he always suggested that they pour a bunch of salt in the hole, which will make the environment not very conducive to that root operating in that area. And again, this makes perfect sense that if you kind of salt the ground there and it stays in there, any tree root that's looking for water is going to avoid that salty area. So we took about a quarter of the container of salt and just poured it down in the hole. And again, seems like a good idea. We'll see how well it works, but grandfather's experiences are usually pretty good on things like that. So we're gonna trust Grandpa and go with some salt as well. Okay, finally we're gonna put sand down in the hole rather than fill it back up with all the dirt we dug out. Fill it up 3/4 of the way with sand. That gives the pipe the ability to move around a little bit if it needs to. It packs pretty dense to support the pipe, and if you have to dig it out again, sand is a lot easier to dig than mud or dirt. So 3/4 of the fill with sand, and then use some of the dirt to backfill, and then use the sod that was taken up to put everything back in normal lawn condition. We did have some surplus, obviously, since we used that sand, and so I had several holes in the yard that needed to be filled. So we just used the rest of that material to fill those holes back up to surface grade. And at the end, we had no dirt left, and all the holes were leveled out flat, so it worked out great. These guys did a great job, and I was very happy to have them. So that's what happened. That's what they did, and hopefully it's going to give me more than 7 years this time on the water line repair. If you found that interesting or helpful, how about giving the video a thumbs up? That helps me out with YouTube, shows them that the video is useful and maybe should be shown to other folks. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you be notified when new videos are available. It's free and it's easy. Just hit the subscribe button. Thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate your time. Take care. You guys may wind up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Show how to do it right.